Hi everyone, Zach here, and welcome to the 81st video in this RTS tutorial series. In this video, we'll be setting up ways to transfer control from the player to the AI. And we're setting this up so that we can create buttons that allow the player to send units to go to sleep or get food before they reach that critical state. The reason we are doing this is to help support what we're going to do in our job satisfaction and overall happiness statistics. That said, fire up your editor and let's get started. Hey everyone, welcome back to the editor. And in this video, we're going to take care of part of what will feed into our AI system. And we're doing this now because our next two stats we have to take care of, which are job satisfaction and overall happiness, are going to be affected by our player. For example, with job satisfaction, our units are going to be less satisfied when they're with their jobs if they're worked until they're fatigued. However, currently we do not have a way to allow our units to go to sleep early or get food early or to retreat. We also, let's just pop open our AI tree for a minute. We're not going to do anything in it today. Want to be able to automate this part of our tree. So the way we're going to handle that is by creating functions inside of our unit info UIs or HUDs that allow us to automate various functions. Now, the first thing we want to do is not related to that per se, but we'll be using it in testing. And we just want to pop open our unit master real quick. And all we want to do is go to our stats, set our hunger down to 0.2, and same with our fatigue. I know I just said that in backwards order there, because we're going to want to do tests with these two. We want to have some value there. We want to set our fear to 0. And again, this is just for testing purposes. All right, now that's taken care of, what we need to do is we need to open our unit info HUD and add some new features. So go to your widgets, go to your unit info HUD. If I can figure out where I put it, there it is. All right, so I'm just going to collapse everything we're not working with. We are going to add a new set of buttons right here. So I'm going to go to my panel, and I'm going to find my uniform grid. I'm just going to drop it onto there, move it to roughly about there, and I'm going to anchor it to the bottom of the screen, and I'm going to name this my AI control box. And in my AI control box, I'm going to have 4 buttons in 2 columns and 2 rows. So just drop 1 button into there, go back to your AI control box, size to content, and we're going to add a text block to that button. I'm going to select the button, and I'm going to duplicate it. And I'm just going to change the row to 1. Actually, I lied. I'm going to change the row back to 0 and the column back to 1. And I'm going to copy both these buttons and paste them in. And the third button, I'm going to set the column. I lied. I'm about to do it again. I'm going to set the row to 1 this time. Sorry about that. And on the other one, row and column both to 1. So we have this 4x4 setup. And I actually am going to center this under the picture. There we go. It's not going to actually be center in the end of the day, but it looks a little bit better to me. This isn't going to look pretty, unfortunately. I'm not a UI artist. So this first button will be our sleep. I'm not sure what scapo is. Sleep button. This will be our sleep button text. And in here, we're going to write the words go sleep, as if it's a command. Then we'll have our eat button. Button has 2 T's in it, by the way, if you didn't know. Sorry for the bad jokes and my typos here. And this will be our eat button text. And this will be go eat. This button is a button that we'll actually be taking care of later on, but I just want it here to begin with. and this will be our job button. This button will be in charge of automating that last branch for us. And this will be our job button text. And it will say do job, or you can say automate job or whatever. And our final button will be a retreat button. Not sure why I'm typing the word text in there, because that's the next part. And then we'll have our retreat button text. Now that we have our 4 buttons set up, we're going to take care of setting them to be enabled, and we're going to take care of 3 other 4 functionalities. The do jobs functionality we'll take care of after we set up the functionality for our individual unit type behavior trees. So let's start with setting if these buttons are enabled. There will be 3 different enable functions we'll create. One will handle the first 2 buttons, one will handle the do job, and one will handle the retreat. So let's take care of the go to sleep and go eat buttons. Scroll down to your bindings, click create binding, and this one will be activate sleep eat button. Now, when we do this, we aren't actually activating the button when we hit return value true or deactivating it when we hit false. We have to add something else in. We'll take care of that right before we do the return node. The first thing we need to do, though, is get our unit reference, and we do not want these 2 buttons to be activated when the unit is in combat. When the unit is in combat, we don't want to send them to get food or go eat. We want them to either fight or retreat. So we're going to search for get is in combat, and we're going to get our pure function here. And we're going to take this value and we're going to do a branch off of it. Our branch will determine if the button is active or not. So if they are in combat, then we don't want them active. And we're going to grab our sleep button and our eat button. We're going to get both of those, and we're going to set is enabled. And we're going to leave this as false. So when they're in combat, the sleep button and the eat button, if I can plug the eat into the target there, will not be active. And then we'll have the return node also false. We're going to duplicate everything except for the 2 button names there down here. And we're going to plug in the buttons into the duplicates at the bottom. And if the units are not in combat, then we want the buttons to be enabled. And we'll have that return enabled as well. All right, go back to your designer. Make sure that the activate sleep eat button is on go to sleep and go eat. Our do job button is going to be a bit different. So click bind, create binding, and in this one, we'll name it activate work button. Break that for a moment. Now the first thing we want to do is we want to see what sort of unit we have. We want to know, is this an infantry unit? So we're going to get class. From our class, we are going to get an equal, and we are going to search for infantry unit. The reason why we want it to be our infantry unit is our infantry units are going to be in combat. That's their job. That's what their behavior tree is going to handle. Part of it, at least. We don't want them not to be able to do their job just because they're in combat. Whereas other units, such as our engineer unit, is there to repair buildings and to construct buildings. They're not meant to be in combat. So if it is an engineer unit, we are always going to have if it is an infantry unit, we are always going to have our infantry unit's job button active. So grab your job button. Now, we don't need to really do this one for the infantry unit, but we're doing it just to be safe because the default is enabled. So it should never be unenabled or disenabled. We just want to do this in case, for some reason, it ever does get disabled. And then take your return value, plug that into there. Now, the false is a bit different. We don't want to just disable the button if it isn't an infantry unit. But what we want to do is we want to check, is it not an infantry unit? And I'm just going to duplicate that. Is the unit in combat? So we're going to search not equal infantry. Now this should always return true, which isn't a problem because what we're going to do is an and ands, both values we plug into here have to be true. So if one of them is false, the overall thing is false. And we're going to search get is in combat. If it is in combat and it's not an infantry unit, this is true. We do not want our button to be active. So we're going to duplicate all of that. We're going to make it not true and plug that into the true. And that's a bit weird. The true event will lead to things being false. If they are not an infantry unit, which is going to be true, and they are not in combat, which makes this false, then we want the button to be active because the overall statement will be false, and we really care if they're in combat or not. Plug that into there. Mark that as active. Now, if for some reason an infantry unit somehow gets past here and into the false, this will return false and invalidate the entire thing, so the button remains active just in case an infantry unit somehow slips past that first check. Not sure how that could happen, but hey, if it happens, at least we have that backup too. All right, go to your designer, and a retreat button is going to be the reverse of our eat and sleep buttons. So go to your bindings, create binding. This will be our activate retreat button. And all we're going to do is we're going to check is a unit in combat. If it is, activate the button. If it isn't, deactivate it. So get is in combat. Put a branch in. Plug that into there. And then, again, grab the retreat button. Set is enabled. Duplicate that down here real quick. So if they are in combat, that's going to be true. And the top return will be true as well. Plug that all into the true there. Line that up. This one will be false if they're not in combat. And that will also be false. So let's just quickly make sure that our buttons are showing up as active or inactive as they should be. So we open up that unit, everything shows up as active. They go to sleep, go to eat, do job, except for the retreat, which we can't click. We can click the other ones, but nothing happens because we haven't taken care of our functionality yet. Now, with regards to our functionality, what we're going to do is we are going to go over to our event graph, and we are going to grab our sleep button, because that's the first one we have. We're going to do onClicked, and we're going to create a new variable. And this variable will be our status enum. And, well, it will be of unit status enum. Mine came up that way automatically because I was testing this out earlier and forgot to change the default type back to bool for the recording. So we're going to grab this and we're going to set it here. And we're going to set this to is fatigued. Next, we want to grab the unit reference. We want to get from our unit reference the controller AI. We don't want this bottom reference we've made. We want the actual get AI controller. And then we are going to pull from this and get Blackboard. From there, we're going to, from our return value, we're going to set value as enum. Plug the execute into there. And then from our return value off the enum here, we're going to plug that into enum value. Plug a couple of reroutes in. And set that up. Now, you could actually skip plugging that in and just look at your enum, work out what enum value that is, and then plug that into there. But in case you update your status enum, this is useful for other things. Plugging it in, that is. Now, we need to create a variable for key name. So I'm going to pull off of here, promote to variable, and this will be status. I'm going to compile real quick and type in status as the default name. Now, what you need to do is make sure that in your Blackboard that your status is named as such, and the name matches perfectly to what you have in here. Otherwise, it will not work. All right, next we're going to grab our eat button. We're going to do on clicked, and then we're going to take everything above it, duplicate it down here, plug it in, set this to is hungry. So that takes care of our eat and sleep buttons. Now as for our retreat button, this one's going to be a bit different. We're going to grab an on click there. Now you could call up the fear event and have them run away to anywhere they want, or if they're near a building, run to a building. I want them to always technically retreat to a building. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my unit reference here. I am going to get the controller reference, and I want the controller, not the AI controller reference. Now in here we have a variable list of constructed buildings. We want to get it. Now I'm going to pause for a moment and say something. I'm not going to plug anything into the execute for a little bit. And I want you to see why that is. I want you to take a guess at why that is once we've completed the next part of this setup for this button. So I'm going to take from here, and I'm going to do a for each loop. Now, what I'm going to do with this is off the array elements, I want to get distance 2. Now, as I go forward, and you're thinking about why I might not be plugging something in here right away, we've done something similar. I talked about it in a couple of videos back, and earlier in the series, we did something else similar as well. We're going to take our unit reference as our other actor, and then we are going to take the return value, and we're going to add unique. We're going to plug the add unique into the loop body execute. Line that up and just move this down so we have room. Off of the add uniques array here, we're going to promote to variable, and this will be building distances. Take all these nodes right here, and we are going to collapse them down to a function. This function will be get building distances. Let's pop open this new function, and I'm just going to line everything back up, move all of this along, and then off the completed, I'm going to do a return node. All right, now you should have the answer to why I haven't plugged anything into here yet. If you haven't worked it out, look at this carefully. Think about every time you click the button, if this were to trigger, what would happen to this array? So before we plug anything into here, before we run this function, we need to get this array, and we need to clear it. Once we've cleared it, then we can run the function. Otherwise, we're going to end up, referencing building distances that are going to pull up indexes later on that don't exist because we're going to have extra references to buildings in there, or extra distances in there. The next thing we're going to do is we are going to take our building distances, and we are going to do the min of float array. With our min of float array, we are going to do a getter, and we're going to do a copy. We're going to take this value here, and we're going to pass that into there. So we should get a reference or a copy of that building. We are going to get our unit reference again, and we are going to set target building. And we are going to set our building to that building reference in our getter. All right. Let's line all of that up. With that in place, we are going to send our unit to that building. Now, this send, we should have probably created a function for it, and I might have elsewhere and forgotten about it. But what we're going to do is we are going to get our unit reference again. We are going to get... That was not what I meant to do with it. We are going to get our AI controller, again, the one on the AI, not the reference we've made. We are going to also get our target building. So that's target unit, sorry about that. Get target building. We are going to get from our target building its entry point. And we're going to get world location. Now, you could do nearest collision point, plug that everything in like we've done in the AI so far, but I'm just going to do it this way. And we're going to move to location or actor. Plug that into there, and plug that into there. All right, that is also not what I meant to do. I want to line up everything else. Take these bits and move them down here. That takes care of setting up our buttons. So let's go ahead and test them out. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to grab this unit here, send them to go to sleep. They go to the building. Let's watch their fatigue level, make sure it decreases. So their fatigue level is indeed decreasing. Next, we're going to take this unit and we're going to send them to get food. All right, and that was Ben. Let's check Ben's hunger levels, make sure they're decreasing. And you can see that they are, in fact, decreasing as the fatigue levels increase. Now, because our unit fatigue levels are increasing and they're not busy, I'm going to cancel this test. Not sure why that error showed up. That might be something we have to clean up later on, but I didn't release any of the units, so I'm not entirely sure what happened there. So the next thing we're going to do is we are going to grab our infantry unit, and we are going to have it attack this unit over here. And the retreat button works. We're sending them to that building over there, and they're safely in that building. So that takes care of what we need to do in this video. Now, in our next video, we'll be taking care of the rest of our... It's still in combat, by the way, which is why the go to eat and go to sleep buttons aren't active. But in the next video, we'll be taking care of what to do with our calculations for our unit's job satisfaction. And then we will address our overall meta statistic of our... I'm going to have him retreat too. Of our happiness. Now, interesting little issue there. Oh, the unit did release. Okay. So the unit didn't release. I was wondering if I had broken something between videos. Apparently I hadn't. So, now that we've done all of that, if you've enjoyed this video, go ahead and hit that like button down below. If you want to be sure you're here when the next video comes out with regards to our meta statistics such as job satisfaction and overall happiness, hit that subscribe and notify icon. And if you want to help support this channel further, consider becoming a supporter on Patreon. All of that said, I look forward to seeing you in the next tutorial, and I hope that you have a wonderful day.